Hi guys, I'm back with another lecture for general medicine. What if a patient comes to you and complains that he is not able to swallow the food? He chews the food and takes it inside, but it does not happen. He is not able to swallow it. So what is the disease the patient is having, or a part of a disease? It is dysphagia. Dysphagia is something where the patient is having difficulty in swallowing the foods, liquids, or even saliva. It is not just normal small symptom, it is something where the patient is actually struggling to swallow it. So it may coexist with heartburn and vomiting, but it must be distinguished from two things, which is globus sensation and odynophagia. Now, what is the sensation of globus? Globus sensation means the patient feels like a lump in his throat. Like the patient says, some lump is there and I cannot swallow what I'm eating. That is different from dysphagia. It can occur because of an actual obstruction in the esophagus. So that is something completely different. Secondly, you need to rule out and differentiate it from odynophagia. Odynophagia is basically painful swallowing, whereas dysphagia is difficulty in swallowing. And odynophagia mostly occurs because of an inflamed esophagus, where inflammation is causing pain while the patient is trying to swallow anything. Whereas dysphagia is normally because of any obstruction, or it can be because of any presence of fibrosis which decreases the lumen size, or the patient is just having difficulty in swallowing. There's no pain, there's no inflammation. So you need to differentiate it from these two, because then you will be able to reach to a differential diagnosis. After we know the definition, there are always some etiologic agents involved. And you need to know this if you're a NEET aspirant, because these form many MCQs. And they are something which can also come in your exam in something like, all of these are symptoms of dysphagia except what? So except means you need to know all the features, and one of them is not going to be a feature of dysphagia. So moving to etiology, there can be oropharyngeal causes and esophageal causes and neuromuscular causes. Now before we do the etiology, so there are three main phases of swallowing. That is the oral, pharyngeal, and esophageal. The oral phase is voluntary, pharyngeal and esophageal are involuntary. Now any problem in either of these causes dysphagia, because the patient is not able to reach the food from the mouth to the stomach. So the causes are also surrounded around these. First is oropharyngeal causes like tonsillitis and oral cancer. Any obstruction in the tonsil area, like over here, if an obstruction is present, yes, the patient will not be able to swallow and it will be painful. So if any of these is present, so yes, the patient will have difficulty in swallowing his food. Next is esophageal causes. Something wrong is present in the esophagus. First is a stricture. So stricture means that the esophagus has got narrowed down at some point. This narrowed passage is causing difficulty in swallowing. Second is diverticula. Diverticula is a small pouch has been formed wherein maybe the food is getting stuck and the patient is feeling that something is stuck and he is not able to swallow completely. That is also dysphagia. Next, there can be carcinoma and gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is GERD. Moving ahead, there can be several neuromuscular causes like stroke, wherein the muscular and the nerve balance is gone. Achalasia. So achalasia is when the motility is decreased. Motility means when the esophagus has to take the food down it. There is some peristaltic movement. It is not the swelling which I'm showing, but the movement, like it peristalsis, so that the food can go from the mouth to the stomach. So this motility gets reduced in achalasia, therefore it will cause dysphagia. Next, there can be bulbar palsy. What's bulbar palsy? It is when these nerves 9, 10, 11, 12, they get deranged. Any of these can get deranged, which causes their muscles to be deranged. So if muscular portion is also affected, the peristalsis will be decreased and the food will not be able to go inside completely. Moving ahead, there can be other causes like head and neck trauma and surgery which has happened, after which there is some constriction or obstruction in the esophagus causing difficulty in swallowing the food. Now, once we've done the etiology of dysphagia, you need to know the types of dysphagia. Now, according to the stages in swallowing, the dysphagia can be of two types, oropharyngeal and esophageal. Oropharyngeal is due to some actual initiation problem in the swallowing. The patient is not able to initiate the swallowing because oropharyngeal is the first aspect of swallowing. So something is wrong in the mouth area, mouth and the throat area. And next is esophageal, where the esophagus is the problem. Now, problem in the esophagus can be because of two reasons. Either it can be some mechanical problem or it can be a motility problem. Now, mechanical problem means there's an actual obstruction which can be because of carcinoma or it can be because of any stricture. And in motility, there can be achalasia, there can be bulbar palsy, and there can be any stroke which has affected the muscles of the esophagus, and therefore the peristalsis is not happening as it should and swallowing is not taking place without the difficulty of the patient. Now, a common differentiating factor is that mechanical is mostly involved to solids. Like first the solids will not be able to go by and then the liquids. But in motility disorders, both solid and liquid foods cannot be taken down the esophagus easily and there's difficulty, that is dysphagia is present. Now once we know the etiology, we need to know what the patient actually suffers from and what are the clinical features. So first and foremost is obviously difficulty in swallowing solids and liquids. There is pain or discomfort while swallowing. So if pain is present, the term will become odynophagia. Then there is coughing or choking during meals because the patient really tries, puts an effort to take the food down, but he is not able to. Then there can be regurgitation of food in the form of vomiting also, and eventually there is going to be weight loss. Also, sometimes the patient can aspirate something leading to obstruction and therefore causing aspirational pneumonia. Now, what are the most severe or tough situations to be in if a patient has dysphagia? There is weight loss happening, recurrent anemia, continuous vomiting, because these three can also indicate that esophageal carcinoma may be present, because this happens only in most severe cases when there is a great obstruction in the esophagus and the patient can really not swallow. So we need to check out for such cases by using various scans, imaging, and even biopsy. So once you know the clinical features, you need to know how to approach towards a patient who has dysphagia. First and foremost is you'll ask the patient that are you feeling stickiness towards the swallowing part or you're actually facing the difficulty in swallowing. If the patient says I'm feeling like food is sticking, so you will do endoscopy and biopsy because you will have to visualize the esophagus actually for the presence of any strictures or diverticula or a pouch formation which might have occurred, which might be trapping the food inside and the patient is getting the stickiness feeling. So if the patient says he's actually having difficulty in swallowing and initiating the swallowing, you need to do some video fluoroscopic swallowing assessments because they will put a dye inside, you'll scan it through an imaging machine and then you'll be able to see where exactly the obstruction is happening and where exactly the patient is having the difficulty which is causing to dysphagia. So also there can be some neurological diseases like bulbar palsy, as I mentioned before, myasthenia gravis and pseudobulbar palsy, where the muscles are affected and peristalsis will get affected. All of this, if it involves esophagus, there can be esophagitis, which is inflammation of the esophagus. There can be a stricture, which is the constriction, and there can be dysmotility. That is, the peristaltic movement is affected. The structure is fine, but the peristalsis is not happening. So if the movement will not happen, the patient will not be able to take the food from the mouth to the stomach. Now, if a stricture is present, you need to rule out if it is benign or malignant. Benign strictures can be peptic and fibrous in nature. Peptic is because of some acidic content and fibrous is because of excess collagen deposition. Whereas if it is malignant, it can be because of any carcinoma of esophagus, stomach, or even some extrinsic compression from the other organs and the carcinoma of other organs. Also, if there's dysmotility, peristalsis is not happening, we need a barium swallow where the patient is made to drink a liquid which contains barium radiation and the barium radiopaque salt, because that will then be fluoresced with a light to view where the actual obstruction and dysmotility is happening. So these are all the procedures you can use to evaluate a patient of dysphagia and rule out where exactly the problem is coming from. Now, after you've done the investigation part, we need to do some tests also to confirm our symptoms. First and foremost is medical history and physical examination to check for the patient's weight loss, anemia, fatigue, dyspnea, dysphagia, what all is happening. You need to note that down. Second, you need to take a chest x-ray and a CT scan because sometimes there can be a problem in the esophagus or there can be problem in the chest organs like lungs and the heart, which can compress the esophagus and cause dysphagia. Next, you need to detect strictures or filling defects using barium swallow. You need to visualize any growth on endoscopy and laryngoscopy for any carcinomas which can be present. You need to do a 24-hour pH monitoring of the gut, because in case of GERD, the pH, it is low and it reaches the esophagus. That can cause a sensation of heartburn along with dysphagia. Then you need to do manometry for the motility studies in cases of achalasia where the motility is decreased. And finally, you need to do biopsy if there are some growth and ulcers found during endoscopy. Suppose you've done endoscopy and in the esophagus you find some growth present. So you will have to do biopsy of these lesions so as to check if it is benign, malignant, or just fibrotic. All these diagnostic and investigations tests will help you come to the diagnosis of dysphagia, and also they will give you the etiologic agent, because when you know the etiology, only then will you be able to give the treatment to the patient, because the first treatment for any disease is to remove the etiology. Once you remove the etiology, the source is removed. Now you just need to correct every symptom and every organ which has been deranged. So the treatment for hair will be dietary modifications. Suppose the patient has GERD, so you need to put the patient on a high pH diet where acidic content shall be decreased and GERD will be reduced, so dysphagia will not happen. Next, the patient can need swallowing exercises in cases of any muscular problems and the neuromuscular system being involved. You might need esophageal dilation in cases of strictures. Then you need antacids again in the case of GERD, because that can cause dysphagia. You need muscle relaxants in cases where the muscles are getting involved due to nerves being affected. So ideally the nerves will be treated, but muscles need to be relaxed because they will lead to good peristaltic motion and remove the dysphagia symptoms. Lastly, the last line treatment is surgery, which can be required for cancers where esophagectomy is done. A part of the esophagus is removed, and it can also be needed in cases of achalasia where the motility is decreased because of any cause like fibrosis or ring formation, etc. So there also surgery might be needed. So once you study any topic under the following headings of definition, etiology, types, clinical feature, the approach towards management, the treatment, any medications, surgery, you complete a topic as a whole and you can remember it like a story. So if you do this way a topic preparation, you will hardly ever forget anything, because if you try to forget, you will think a piece is missing, and when you try to recall it, the story will be completed. So that's how you can make general medicine an easier subject and something easier to remember. So before we sign off from today's lecture, I'm going to solve with you a flashcard and an MCQ for this topic. So the first is a flashcard which states that a malignant cause of esophageal dysphagia can be the carcinoma of esophagus as well as of the stomach. So if you solve such flashcards on our app, you get the answer once you click towards the next part. And for solving an MCQ, suppose the question is weight loss is a characteristic feature seen in cyanosis, cellulitis, dysphagia, or all. So mostly students think that if a question has all of these as option, that is the answer. Because why will someone put that option? But that is not always true. You need to use your mind over here. So weight loss cannot be seen in cyanosis and cellulitis. I mean, it doesn't even relate. So the answer shall be dysphagia. So be mindful of the question and don't just take thinking the obvious answer is all of these. It's not. So if you would like to solve more of these flashcards and MCQs, you must download our app from the Play Store, that is medistudygo. You'll get such pictorial mind maps for every topic of every subject. And you must subscribe us on YouTube, like our video, and do comment below the video for any queries you have and for any topic you want to be covered first. Keep watching our videos and let us know for any queries you have, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.